Howa MiniAction rifles on this episode of the 6'5 Guys.
This episode of 6'5 Guys is brought to you by Defiance Machine, defying tradition with innovation. Our Bros Rifles, precision on another level. JC Steel Targets, the industry leader in quality AR-500 steel targets.
Hi, and welcome to the 6'5 Guys. I'm Ed Mobley.
And I'm Steve Lawrence. At 2017 SHOT Show, Industry Day at the Range, we actually got a chance to visit the folks at Howa and actually try a rifle just like this. So Howa introduced the MiniAction, the Howa 1500 Action, in some very interesting cartridges. In this case, 6.5 Grendel and 7.62 by 39. And boy, these, I think the comment we made when we actually did SHOT Show, it was a great, accurate truck gun.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really fun rifle, and what caused me to really gravitate toward the 7.62 by 39 is usually, you know, people's perception of that cartridge is shaped by shooting it from a rifle like this, where an MOA guarantee usually means magazine of ammo and not minute of angle.
Right. And you never really kind of think of a cartridge like this in a bolt action.
Exactly, and so that's what really intrigued me, and so I decided to audition one of these in 7.62 by 39. And you, of course, went with the 6.5 Grendel?
Yeah, as folks probably know, I actually have a 6.5 Grendel semi-auto in that type of a platform, but not in a bolt action. In fact, for several years I'd been entertaining doing a 6.5 Grendel in bolt action, but they just don't make them. You actually have to go with something else and go to a gunsmith and have it chambered and all of that. Now we actually have one straight from the factory, and boy, this thing's fun.
Yeah, and what was very attractive is, you know, it's a quality rifle. I mean, there are a lot of subjective aspects to quality, but they are made in Japan, and as you know, like many things that come from Japan, I mean, they're just made very well. And so I had a chance to shoot it, and it was just completely reliable. Mm-hmm. Now, I do wish they made them in left hand. Unfortunately, they don't, and they told me not to set my expectations appropriately, which is it'll never come in left hand. But that being said, I mean, you know, a lot of times you'll get a factory rifle, and you're like, oh, I wish the magazine worked better or it fed better, but not the case with this. I mean, I put the scope on and took it out, and it was just completely reliable, and it really changed my perceptions of what the 7.62 by 39 cartridge is capable of. I mean, I was just shooting Wolf military grade ammo, and at 100 yards I had no problem on steel, just stacking the round. So it was very, very impressive.
Now, full disclosure for you guys, Matt Hornbeck of Legacy International, who is the importer and distributor here in the United States for these rifles, contacted us asking if we wanted to do a test and eval of these rifles. So that's a disclosure. Now, we've had them for about a month or so, and we'll roll a little bit of B-roll. We actually had a chance to take these to the range, and boy, you know, you mentioned a little bit about your experience shooting this. I had a very similar experience, but I actually hand load my ammo for 6.5 Grendel. Now, it's interesting, I actually went through a whole reload of 6.5 Grendel ammo for my semi-auto, and since I just had that line on the shelf, I decided, hey, I'm just gonna throw that in, see what it does. And I shot a nice little 1/2-inch group on this.
That's very impressive. So your perceptions of accuracy compared to what you were getting out of a semi-auto, you felt it was comparable, or maybe
very comparable?
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it's comparable. Now, you know, there are some things to mention about this rifle and just my user experience in using it. One is, from the factory, you get this plastic chassis, or you know, the stock, and if I was going to take this and accurize it and customize, I would do a couple of things. First thing is, this is great for a utility rifle. If you're going to keep it this way, I would have no objections to doing that. But if you really want to have a very accurate little shooter, I would probably go with a chassis system. Now, there is Moser MDT actually makes a chassis for this that you could drop this into. That's one thing I'm considering doing. The other is the trigger. The trigger from the factory is relatively heavy. I haven't had a chance to measure it, but it feels it's probably in the 6-ish pound range versus on my semi-auto. I have a 2-stage trigger on that that's a much lighter, crisper pull. So I had that to contend with while I was trying to shoot groups with this. But regardless, it still shot great.
Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, I like the fact that just out of the box, I would leave it like this. I mean, I don't have any aspirations of putting it in a chassis or changing it. And that's what I found attractive is, as is, from the factory, out of the box, it's just completely usable.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if I get a wild hair, I might thread the barrel so I could put a suppressor on it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, as is, it's terrific. Of course, it's not left-handed, but I'll get over that. Now my trigger was a little better. I'd say it's right in the 2.5 pounds, reasonably crisp. I was looking at some of the documentation. Haven't played around with it yet, but there may be some options to adjust that.
I was looking through the owner's manual, and you can adjust the trigger. You have to take it out of the stock, but there is an adjustment screw on there.
So we can play around with that and maybe get the pull weight down a little bit. So, but yeah, mine definitely out of the box was not as heavy as what you had experienced.
Another kind of interesting thing about this in using it was the fact that there is no pick rail, right? So the action itself does require a 2-part base. In this case, just a standard Remington 700 2-part base, after which you can attach any type of scope rings you want. So in this case, I dropped on some Vortex, and I've got a Bushnell HDMR scope on this. The other is the attachment for a bipod is a sling swivel, same in the rear.
Right. Well, and again, nothing
wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that for this gun.
Yeah, it certainly works. And in my case, I had an older scope sitting around, and I just used some rings and bases that I had from an older Remington 700 sitting around. So just from a value proposition, a lot of folks that have been in this game for a while probably have some legacy hardware that's screaming out to be mounted to a rifle.
Yeah.
And so that I found very attractive too, as I was able to repurpose some of the equipment that I had. But all in all, very, very happy with the rifle.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and take the safety flag out. I just wanted to kind of cycle this a few times so folks kind of know what that's like. I mean, my sense is it's fairly smooth, very positive, lockup. And for coming straight from the factory, I think I probably ran about 100 rounds through this so far. I don't think there's really a lot of use required to smooth it up. I mean, it cycles fairly smooth.
Out of the box, yeah.
Yeah, right out of the box. Again, the trigger for me is a little heavy. Of course, on my match rifle, I'm running about a pound.
Right.
Or just over a pound. So, but yeah. Great fun rifle. So I'd like to talk more with Matt and see about actually going ahead and buying this. This is, I think, a keeper.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna gift this to my son who's right-handed. But even for a left-handed shooter, as far as a use case, I believe that in the game of long-range precision rifle, the more trigger time, the better. Particularly if you want to practice positional and whatnot. And so I think there's just a lot of value besides having a fun, truck gun or utility rifle for a round that's as inexpensive as the 7.62 by 39, or you could even get this in 223. It makes a very nice trainer rifle as well.
Yep.
So besides being a fun rifle, I think it could also help you with your long range marksmanship and really help keep the costs down. When it comes to having a trainer rifle, because I know if there's one critique we got about our 223 trainers, it's like, yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah, we wish we had another $4 or $5 grand sitting around to build our own trainers. Well, guess what? I mean, you really don't have to spend that much.
Yeah, I mean, these retail for what, around $6 or so?
It depends on the options.
Yeah.
They've got a pretty extensive price list. If you go to the website, we'll give you that link. And another thing that they did is the folks at Legacy Sports, they conducted some extensive tests of various factory ammo offerings for both the 7.62 by 39 as well as the 6.5 Grendel, and in a very nice spreadsheet format. So we'll actually include that in our article. So if you decide to get one, you can look at the various commercial offerings and select an offering that performed well in this rifle.
Yeah. One other thing to note, you see these mags sitting on here. It comes with a 5-round factory mag. I mean, this is one thing that would be nice to have several of these. Where in the instance that they have actually a higher capacity mag, that would be a welcome addition as well.
And interestingly enough, it looked for both of our cartridges. These look like
very well. They should, because the Grendel's parent cartridge is the 7.62 by 39.
Okay, that explains that. That explains that. But yeah, I mean, this magazine just utterly reliable. It just fed perfectly, and never have I experienced that with an out-of-the-box commercial-grade factory rifle. There's always some little gotcha or some little aggravation associated with it, but that just wasn't the case with this rifle.
Well, good. Guys, if you have an interest in this, be sure to check out our write-up that will accompany this video on our website, and check out the Howa website. We'll continue to play around with these and perhaps give an update in the following weeks or months as we get more experience behind the trigger with these.
Yeah, and before we close, it's also worth noting that a lot of custom gunsmiths also build on Howa actions.
Yep, that's right.
So this could be your investment or your initial foray into a custom rifle.
Absolutely. In fact, I saw they actually offer these as barreled actions, or you can just buy the actions directly.
Well, folks, we hope you found that informative. Remember, life's an adventure.
Stay on target.